The Holy Gospel comes from the 13th chapter of John. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given him all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." And Jesus said to him, "One who is bathed does not need to wash, except for the feet, but is entirely clean, although not all of you are clean." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason, he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his outer robe, and returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now, the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little while longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Oftentimes, as part of Maundy Thursday, churches do foot washing. We've done that in the past, and we've tried hand washing. Of course, none of this can be done virtually, so that's out for this year. But even when foot washing is done, there's only a few who want to participate. Maybe that's because feet can get, well, ugly. toenails scraggly or too long, or there are knots and odd bumps that protrude, or maybe that's just my fate. There's lint that gets caught between our toes and maybe dirt behind our nails. I've known some who go to get pedicures before Maundy, Thursday foot washing so that their feet are presentable. So I guess the vulnerability of revealing our feet is reserved for a stranger who we pay to do our nails, or a podiatrist who gets paid even more to care for our feet. There's no shame or judgment here, but merely to point out that we feel pretty vulnerable about our feet. What we see depends on what we believe, and I guess many of us believe that feet are gross. If we feel this way in the 21st century, I expect the disciples felt that vulnerability even more. Given that the streets were practically sewers, foot washers were touching so much more than dirt and sand, but human excrement. There's more at stake, of course, on this night than how people feel about their feet. Here in the gospel, John tells us that by the time everyone arrives at this dinner, the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas to betray Jesus. The devil was playing tricks with Judas' heart. Jesus' way of love is weak, the devil must have taunted. So if Judas could just back Jesus into a corner, then Jesus would surely show his might and launch a battle to become the rightful king of Israel, the Messiah. Playing with Judas' heart, the devil made him believe that military might and power was evidence of strength. And when Judas started to believe that, he could only see that Jesus' love and compassion was weak. In fact, it was laughable against empires and rulers and principalities. But even as Jesus gathers with his friends, Jesus will stake it all on love. Jesus knew his betrayer was at that table with him, and still Jesus would wash Judas's feet. Still, Jesus would kneel before Judas and pour water over his filthy feet and wipe them with a towel. Jesus' love was for everyone. And we'll never know if this broke Judas's heart because he thought himself unworthy of such a tender touch after the trap he'd laid for Jesus. Or we'll never know if Judas seethed with anger as he so badly wanted Jesus to take his rightful place as the Messiah, while Jesus did this humiliating act of playing the part of a slave. What Judas sees depends on what he believes. And as the devil plays tricks with Judas' heart, Judas sees Jesus' failure and weakness because he believes in things like victory and power as the signs of strength. In Jesus' final hours, he had one lesson to teach the disciples. And it was counterintuitive to how so much of the world works. Love. Love is the way, the answer, the force that can transform hearts and change the world. And there was one way to get the message across to his friends. Jesus could have talked about it all day long, but he had to show them what love looked like in action. And so he knelt down and washed the filth from their feet, an act of humility, service, compassion, and love. And it challenged everything the disciples knew of social status and hierarchy, of power and might, of honor and shame, of how the world was supposed to work. And it all must have felt so new, so revolutionary that the discomfort from it they could feel in their bones and in their gut. Jesus was trying to teach them to believe in love. To believe love and compassion is the truest measure of strength. To believe love could transform hearts and change the world. If what we see depends on what we believe, and we dare to believe in the love as Jesus taught us, then we see each person worthy and deserving of that love and of compassion. If what we see depends on what we believe, and we dare to believe in love as Jesus taught us, and we see ourselves as bearers of God's love in the world. This week, I heard a beautiful story of loving service from a fellow clergywoman and mother. Something that still had to do with feet, actually, just a more contemporary rendering. Pastor Bethany said it was one of the most beautiful acts of pastoral care she had ever been invited to do. Pastor Bethany's parishioner was getting unexpectedly induced 3 weeks early due to blood pressure issues. The soon-to-be parents were scrambling the day of the induction that would start later in the evening as they were trying to get finalized and ready for the baby's arrival. Pastor Bethany told this soon-to-be mama that she would come over and do whatever she needed to have done and then pray with them one last time. Upon Pastor Bethany's arrival, the pregnant mama said, "I have something really weird I would like you to do." And Pastor Bethany replied, "I love weird." And the pregnant mama said, "Would you please paint my toenails?" "Absolutely, I'd love to," said Pastor Bethany. The pregnant mama had terrible nail polish, so Pastor Bethany ran home, grabbed her stash, and returned and started to give this woman a mani-pedi. Pastor Bethany said it was the most holy thing, giving her this beauty that she could control as she entered into a scary time, preparing her body for a warrior birthing, and just showing her care and compassion with a tender touch. Maybe if our modern day foot washing looked more like a pedicure, we wouldn't think it's so cringy. And I don't know, but give me a year and I might just think pedicures are the perfect thing for Holy Week. My friends, tonight Jesus tells us the most important thing: to love one another as we have been loved. He invites us to believe in love, to believe in God's love for the world as revealed in Jesus, to believe Jesus would give his life for the sake of love, to believe that we share in Christ's love every time we remember this sacred story and break bread and share the cup, and to believe that God's love is revealed in every humble act of service we do in his name. If we dare to believe in this kind of love, it shapes everything we see. Thanks be to God.